Did you hear about the Bitcoin Center in New York in the early days before the bit license came in? I don't know if this is really funny, but it's more like this is how old school life was. So it was always ironic to me that we were talking about the most disruptive tech potentially out there. And yet there was a trading pit. So it was called Satoshi Night. And I think they used to be Monday and Thursday nights. The Satoshi Nights was basically a outcry pit like they had in the old days of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So the irony of the latest tech was that actually you had this trading pit on Monday, I think, and Thursday nights with people in jackets and screaming out prices, and it'd be up on this wall, and people would literally transact Bitcoin. I used to go there. Obviously, I worked for a CME group, and this was early days, and I didn't want there to be traceability around what I was doing in terms of buying Bitcoin. I used to literally go to the ATM and I'd show up with like whatever I could feel comfortable taking with me in cash. I would hand over cash to them buy Bitcoin. And back then, like Bitcoin was low enough where if you had $1,000 or whatever the number was, you could still buy some decent amount of Bitcoin. But it was always hilarious to me that as a trader, we're talking about really sophisticated tech and disruptive tech, and yet we're all meeting to like trade Bitcoin in person in an outcry trading scenario. But I remember I got my first ever wallet when Nick Spanos had this machine. It would literally print out a private key. And my first wallet was actually this printout. I remember him distinctly saying to me, keep it safe because if you lose your private key, that's it. And that was like the first thing I ever got before I picked up, I opened an account with blockchain. It was way before Jax, way before, a bunch of the wallets were available. It was like early days. So then I had this piece of paper that it gave me, which obviously had the private keys on it. And for a while, I just kept it with me. But then I noticed it was really crappy ink. The ink started fading. So like immediately I actually wrote it down and then I tucked it away and I hid it and I just locked it. It didn't go into a safety deposit box or anything. People were like, oh, the safest thing you could do is write it down and then put it in a safety deposit box. And I was just like, wait a minute. So you're telling me I'm taking something that's meant to be just all digital, and now I basically, as cold storage, I am now going to put it on a piece of paper and then put it in a safety deposit box. And now I know people complain about it's not as easy to use and secure, but I tell people all the time, like, you don't understand. There's so many more options today as a user than there were even 5 years ago. But it was down by New York Stock Exchange, like two doors down or something. And it was a great place. There's lots of fun stuff going on, t-shirts, like stuffed animals, like there was just all kinds of kit. People would bring in their mining rigs and sell them, I think. I didn't buy one, but like I remember at one point there were all these mining rigs, not massive ones, but ones that you could put in your apartment. I remember people of all ages. I met this woman who must have been in her 70s or something, and she said she was an intern. It was hilarious. She's like, yeah, I was walking by the street and I saw this Bitcoin center of New York, and I was wondering, what is that? Everyone was so nice. I learned about this Bitcoin thing. And she's like, now I'm an intern. And it was just awesome. Like, there were 15-year-old kids there, and then there were people in like their 70s plus. And it was really, I think, a microcosm of the way Bitcoin was envisaged to be. And it wasn't about necessarily getting rich. It was really around, this is a cool tech. And you could also form relationships and bonds in person as well. And I think the early days of Bitcoin, when people were really beginning to understand and get into it, were actually kind of really good days. Like there were a lot of good people in the space. And then obviously the bit license came in New York, and that effectively shut down Satoshi Night. So I still kind of miss it.